We've been told the story so many times that it feels permanent. Civilization began when humans learned to farm. Before that, we wandered. We hunted. We survived. We scratched symbols into bone and stone, barely holding on. That story feels safe, orderly. It gives history a clean starting point. But there's a place in southeastern Turkey where that story quietly collapses. No warning signs, no dramatic announcement, just stone rising out of the earth where it shouldn't exist. Gobekli Tepe. For most of human history, it sat buried beneath a hill. No ruins sticking out, no legends pointing to it, just dirt and time. When archaeologists began uncovering it in the 1990s, they expected something small, a campsite, a few tools, evidence of early survival. Instead, they found towering stone pillars arranged in deliberate circles, each pillar carved from solid limestone, some weighing over 20 tons, lifted, positioned, aligned. And these stones weren't rough. They weren't rushed. They were shaped with intention. Animals carved in relief. Foxes, serpents, boars. Birds frozen in motion as if caught between worlds. Hands etched along the sides of the pillars. Not raised in greeting. Not gripping weapons, just resting there. Watching. Gobekli Tepe is over 11,000 years old. That date matters more than it sounds. Because according to the timeline we were given, humans at that point weren't builders. They weren't planners. They weren't organizers of massive labor projects. They were supposed to be small groups moving with the seasons, focused on food, shelter, and survival. And yet here stood a structure that required coordination, design. Knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Someone had to decide where each pillar went. Someone had to oversee the work. Someone had to teach others how to carve stone this precisely. And someone had to convince people to do it. Gobekli Tepe wasn't a home. There were no hearths, no cooking areas, no signs of daily living. People didn't gather here to survive. They gathered here for something else. And that raises a quiet question most history books never prepare you for. What if belief came before farming? What if gathering came before settlement? What if humans didn't organize because they had excess food, but learned to produce excess food because they had a reason to organize? The builders of Gobekli Tepe carved these pillars, raised them, used the site for centuries, and then something even stranger happened. They buried it, not abandoned, not destroyed by disaster, intentionally covered. Layer by layer, the site was filled in. Stone tools, animal bones, earth packed tight around the pillars until the entire complex vanished beneath the hill. The same people who built it hid it. Why bury something that took generations to create? There are no answers carved into the stone, no inscriptions explaining the reason, just silence. And that silence stretches across continents, because Gobekli Tepe isn't alone. Across the world, there are structures that appear suddenly in the archaeological record, fully formed, technically precise, then gone. Stonework that later cultures built on top of, but never duplicated. Knowledge that appears, then fades. History prefers straight lines. Progress moving forward. Tools improving. Societies advancing. But Gobekli Tepe suggests something else entirely. A rise, a fall, and memory being swept away. If this site existed before farming, before pottery, before metal tools, what else existed alongside it? What knowledge didn't survive the passage of time? What skills were lost when climates shifted, floods came, and populations scattered? Because stone remembers longer than people do. And Gobekli Tepe remembers something we were never meant to forget. The idea that civilization didn't begin once. It emerged, collapsed, and emerged again. Each time leaving fragments behind, buried under hills, submerged beneath oceans, hidden in plain sight. Gobekli Tepe forces a realization that feels uncomfortable the longer you sit with it. We don't stand at the beginning of history. We stand somewhere in the middle. And whatever came before us, whatever organized human hands to raise those stones, didn't disappear quietly. The hill at Gobekli Tepe doesn't stand alone when you start paying attention. Once you accept that something organized humans earlier than expected, the world begins to feel different, older, layered. Like a room that's been rearranged so many times, you can still sense the furniture that used to be there. Because the stones at Gobekli Tepe aren't the only ones that refuse to fit neatly into the story. Far across the ocean, high in the Andes, there are walls built from stones so precisely fitted that a blade can't slide between them. No mortar, no straight lines. Each block shaped to lock into the next, like a puzzle that only works one way. Some of these stones weigh more than a fully loaded freight truck. They were moved uphill, carved without steel tools, placed with a precision that absorbs earthquakes instead of shattering beneath them. What unsettles engineers isn't just the size, it's the technique. Later cultures built beside these walls, on top of them, around them. They honored them, but they didn't copy them, which suggests the builders weren't just ancestors. They were inheritors of something already old. And then there's the water. Sea levels haven't always been what they are now. At the end of the last ice age, oceans rose hundreds of feet as glaciers melted and coastlines vanished. Cities that once hugged the shore would have been swallowed whole. Off the coast of Japan, beneath the waves, there's a massive stone structure carved into steps and terraces, straight edges, right angles, platforms descending into the deep. Some call it natural, some don't. What matters isn't the argument. What matters is this. If people lived there before the water rose, the sea erased their footprints. History doesn't preserve what sinks. It preserves what survives. Which brings us to a device pulled from a shipwreck in the Mediterranean. A tangled mass of corroded bronze gears, discovered by accident. At first, it looked like debris. Then someone cleaned it. Inside was a machine. Interlocking gears. Mathematical precision. A system capable of tracking celestial cycles, predicting eclipses, and mapping the movement of planets. Built over 2,000 years ago, and then forgotten. The Antikythera mechanism didn't lead to an era of ancient computers. It didn't spark an industrial age. It disappeared. The knowledge that created it didn't spread. It didn't evolve. It ended. And when knowledge ends, it leaves no fossils, only gaps. Those gaps appear everywhere once you start noticing them. Maps that depict coastlines no one should have known. Alignments that track the stars with unsettling accuracy. Artifacts crafted from materials that shouldn't behave the way they do. Objects that look like they belong to a process. But no process survives alongside them. History teaches us to think of time as a ladder, each rung higher than the last. But ladders break, and sometimes what remains is a scatter of steps that no longer connect. The people who built Gobekli Tepe didn't write books. They didn't leave metal tools behind. They carved memory into stone. Stone that survived floods. Stone that outlasted languages. Stone that waited. And if that's true, then the ancient world wasn't quiet and empty. It was crowded with knowledge that didn't make it to us intact. Civilizations don't just collapse. They fragment. Skills become stories. Stories become myths. Myths become symbols. And symbols remain long after meaning fades. That's why the same shapes appear in places separated by oceans. Spirals, serpents, hands, eyes watching from stone. They aren't proof of a single lost empire. They're echoes, remnants of ideas that survive people. And once you see history this way, the past feels less distant, less primitive, more fragile. Because progress doesn't guarantee permanence. If climate shifts, if oceans rise, if the ground shakes, what we know now could scatter just as easily. Libraries drown, cities sink, satellites fall silent, stone endures. Which raises a question that lingers longer than any artifact. If our civilization vanished, what would remain to tell the story? And would whoever found it believe we were ever capable of what we built? Because somewhere beneath soil, sand, and water, there are answers waiting. And the deeper you look, the more it feels like history isn't hiding from us. It's watching. There's a moment every archaeologist reaches, though few say it out loud. It happens when the measurements line up too well, when the alignments are too precise, when the explanation starts sounding rehearsed. That moment is when you realize the past wasn't just surviving, it was paying attention. At Gobekli Tepe, the pillars aren't random. They aren't decorative. They face specific directions. They frame the sky. Some alignments point toward constellations that no longer rise the same way they once did, because the sky itself shifts over time, slowly, predictably. To notice that shift, you don't need advanced machines. You need patience measured in generations. Someone was watching the heavens long enough to notice patterns outliving a single lifetime. And that's unsettling, because people who are only worried about survival don't track the stars with that kind of care. They don't carve them into stone. They don't embed cosmology into architecture. They plan. And planning implies expectation. Across ancient sites, the same fixation appears. The sun at solstice, the moon at its extremes, the slow wobble of the sky. Structures built to catch light on one specific day every year. Chambers designed so darkness holds until a precise moment. This isn't decoration, it's timing. And timing suggests purpose beyond daily life. Which brings us back to the act that still doesn't sit right. The burial. Gobekli Tepe wasn't lost. It wasn't destroyed by an invading force. It wasn't abandoned in a hurry. It was carefully filled in. The carvings were protected, not smashed. The pillars weren't toppled. They were sealed, like someone wanted it preserved, but inaccessible. That behavior repeats elsewhere. Temples deliberately closed. Knowledge encoded instead of written. Symbols layered so only parts survive. Why hide something that defines you, unless it was never meant to be permanent? Some researchers suggest these sites weren't temples in the way we understand them. They were markers, anchors, places meant to survive catastrophe. Because ancient people understood something modern culture struggles with. The world resets. Flood myths appear on every continent. Stories of great waters swallowing land, ending ages forcing survivors to rebuild. They aren't identical stories. They don't need to be. They describe the same fear from different shores, rising seas, unpredictable skies, a sense that stability can vanish. If you believe collapse was inevitable, what would you preserve? You wouldn't save books. Paper rots. You wouldn't save cities. They crumble. You would save knowledge in the only medium that endures. Stone. Carved so it can't be erased easily. Placed so it can't be moved. Buried so it can't be misused. And maybe that's why what survives feels incomplete. Because it was never the whole message. Only enough. Enough to remind future people that they were not the first. Enough to warn without explaining. Enough to make the curious uncomfortable. Look at how later civilizations treat ancient ruins. They revere them. They build around them. They claim them. But they don't fully understand them. That's the pattern. In Peru, later cultures placed smaller stones atop massive foundations they couldn't replicate. In Egypt, later dynasties restored monuments they didn't build. In Greece, knowledge was rediscovered, then lost again. Each time, humanity climbs back towards something, but never quite reaches it. And here's the part that rarely gets discussed. What if ancient knowledge wasn't just about building? What if it was about cycles, about understanding when to gather, when to disperse, when to prepare? Knowledge that tells you not how to dominate the world, but how to survive it. Because advance doesn't always mean louder. It doesn't always mean metal and machines. Sometimes it means restraint. The builders of Gobekli Tepe could have kept expanding. They could have built cities. Instead, they buried their work and moved on. That choice feels deliberate, like a civilization stepping back from visibility. Like a culture that understood permanence invites attention, and attention invites destruction. And now, thousands of years later, we uncover their markers and feel unsettled. Not because they were mysterious, but because they feel familiar. We recognize the urge to measure time, to track the sky, to leave something behind. We recognize the fear that nothing lasts, And maybe that's the lie we were told. That civilization is a straight line. That progress only moves forward. The stones say otherwise. They suggest memory is fragile, that knowledge can vanish, that greatness can be buried, and that we are not standing at the end of history. We are standing inside a loop.